Hi, I'm Carlos Reyes, founder of rcadvisor.com, and this is my work table. I've got some power tools over there and storage, and my foam storage is over here, and I don't know if you can see down here, I got some more storage, but this is basically where I do all my model airplane work. And it's very simple. It's just a solid wood table. I think I got it from Lowe's for like 50 bucks. And then I got a whole bottle of, I think it's like boat varnish. And I just put layer after layer after layer, which is why it's got this nice color and nice surface to it. But, 50 bucks, and I got a couple of work stands that I have underneath, which have also room for storage. But really simple, and it's worked really well for me. It's kept itself pretty flat, and I've had it for a few years. But anyway, since I'm working on a couple of new airplane designs, the Kilo 3D and the Pickerel, which I just announced, I thought it would be good to do a test of different glues. And I've done this test like this before for my own needs. But of course, there's always new glues coming out into the market, and there's glues that they discontinued. And I thought it will make a good article, but then I had to get my video setup going. So I said, okay, maybe it's a good video to get going with. So anyway, let me kind of go through. You can see here I have a bunch of pieces of foam. So these are like 2 inches by like 3 or 4, and I wrote on them on there what the glue was, and I just put the glue in between, put it together. They've all had at least 24 hours to sit, so they all should be dry by now. If they're not dry, that means they're probably never going to be dry, which I've seen happen. And you can see the glues here, but I'll go through one by one. But it's a total of like 15. But let me, I guess before I go through those, let me go through a couple of glues that I didn't test, because I have tested them before, and one of them is CA. Here's a bottle of CA glue which I bought, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and I used it a couple of times. This is the odorless, so it's the more expensive stuff. And the problem with this glue and foam, and again, I'm talking about building with foam, which is mostly what this foam and maybe with some wood mixed in, but they're mostly foam. So the problem with this glue, and I've done a test like this, exactly like this before, is that I put it on there and it just never dries. I mean, it takes forever to dry. And I think it's just because there's not enough air getting in there. And given how expensive this glue is, and the other problem with CA is that after it dries, it can be brittle. So I don't think it's a good glue to use with foam at all. I mean, I guess if you have a small joint that gets a lot of air, and you're out of the field, yeah, CA can be handy. And in fact, I think that's what I've used it for. I don't think I've used it here in the shop. I just take it with me to the field. But again, it dried out because I haven't had to use it for a while, and it was very expensive to begin with, so that wasn't really a great investment. So I don't recommend CAs for foam. I think there's better choices. Another glue which I don't really recommend is epoxies. Now epoxies, of course, they have their place, but the thing with epoxies, they have a couple of problems. This is 15 minute and that's 30 minute. But one problem with epoxy is that you have to mix it before you use it, and you're never going to mix just the right amount. So you either, usually you're going to mix not enough, but then I guess after you've done it for a while, then you always do like twice as much as you think you need, so that you don't run out. So then you end up wasting a lot of it. But it's also extra work. I mean, you have to measure it out and you have to mix it. And when I use epoxy, I use these little cups. I mean, and that that's the other big problem with epoxy is the health issues. You really should never touch it. Okay, I mean, you can put it on and all of that, and the fumes might be an issue for some people, but bottom line is you don't want to touch it, and it's not because you're gonna it's going to have for most people, it's not going to be a big allergic reaction right away. But what happens is that over time, you build, your system builds, or rather loses it can develop an allergic reaction, but it can take a long time. So you could be doing this for 20 years and touching it, and all of a sudden you have a huge allergic reaction. And I've actually know a couple of people that happened to, and now they can't go anywhere near epoxy or anything like that. Of course they can touch it after it's cured, but while it's still wet, if they touch it, they have to run to the hospital because it's not good. So anyway, so I use these little cups, and I got this disposable, I think they're like horsehair brushes, but pretty inexpensive. So you mix in the quantity of each epoxy, and the other thing with epoxy is that you really should mix it for a lot longer than you think you need, because it's thick. It's like a syrup. If you wear a thin liquid, very quickly it will get mixed up. But given how thick it is, you have to mix it, maybe 3 times longer than you think you need. So anyway, epoxy is a hassle to use it. You have to be careful not to touch it, and if you do touch it, it's kind of a big mess because it's kind of the resin that sticks to your fingers, and it's heavy too. It does release heat when it dries. It's an exothermic reaction. Most of the time, it's not going to be a problem with foam unless you put a whole big blob on there. The other thing also is that this is 15-minute and 30-minute, and there's also a 5-minute epoxy. Well, the way they get the epoxy to cure so quickly is that it has additives, and especially the 5-minute epoxy, it doesn't have the strength of the regular stuff. They call this 30-minute. It's really the fastest that I would recommend. And 5-minute epoxy is not much time at all, and because you should spend at least a couple of minutes mixing it, and so that gives you very little time to work with it. So I don't recommend 5-minute epoxy. If you have to use something, use at least 15, but 30 minutes is even better. So only do stuff that you're not in a huge hurry. Now, once it dries, epoxy I think does a good job with a lot of materials, but it's just a hassle, and for that reason I don't use it much anymore. And and of course CAs I don't use that much either. Let me kind of start going through, and I've done a lot of these tests before, but I haven't taken a good close look at these ones. So we're going to be looking at them together. But let me start out with the Gorilla type of glues, which is the expanding foam polyurethane glues. And I have a couple of bottles here. These are actual Gorilla glue bottles. And Gorilla glue, I honestly don't use it anymore. And it's got some. I liked it at first because it's really quick, and it has a nice strong bond. But the problem with Gorilla Glue, the main problem, is that it expands as it dries. And I know they've tried to come up with better formulas over time, but I did a test. So anyway, but there's another problem which I didn't know, is that it also dries out. I had 2 bottles. This one I had used a little bit for some testing. This one was brand new. It's still in the package, and again, it's 2-3 years old, and it's like totally useless. It's just dried out. So that was money that wasted. This one too. I guess it's probably the same formula as that one. So I wanted to test Gorilla Glue, but they're no good. But then I found this other bottle that I bought. It's from Elmer's Craft Band Polyurethane Glue, which is pretty much the same stuff. And it was a brand new bottle, but I opened it up and it had like an inner seal, and I think for that reason it's in pretty good shape. Some of it had dried out too, but it's still in pretty good shape. So I did a test, and here it is, Elmer's polyurethane, and I put it on there, And this is hard to see, but actually what happened is that it foamed up. I put in, it wasn't a real thick layer, but I came back, I don't know, half an hour or an hour later, and the foam was like, the foam had, the glue had totally expanded, and the foam was like, I don't know, maybe it's at least a 1/16 of an inch gap in between. So I actually, after I saw that, I actually pushed it back together because it was still a little bit wet, and now it's hard, but it looks like even after I pushed it back together, it foamed up some more, and that's what I hate about this glue. Well, there's two things that I hate about it, maybe three, but one of them is that it foams up. So you're trying to be precise, and you're trying to have something that you set it and it's not going to move. Well, this is the wrong glue for that, because it foams up and you can't control the foaming. And yeah, I guess you can go through a lot of extra trouble and clamp it down, but who wants to go through all that hassle if you don't have to? And then the other thing about it is that since it kind of foams up out of the joint, at least this is how I feel. It makes my work look really sloppy. It's like I put down a very neat bead to glue something, and then it foams up and it gets all these clumps, all these ugly clumps. I hate it. I mean, it doesn't make me look good. It throws everything out of alignment, so then the airplane doesn't fly right. And then the other thing is that, it's not that big of a huge of an issue, but if you touch it, it's all one of those kind of sticky, kind of messy glues that you have a problem getting it out of your finger. So anyway, but now that it's dried, let me see how well it held up. I'm trying to separate the two pieces of foam. It looks like it held up really well. Let me put a little bit more force on here. It's glued really well. It doesn't seem to be very heavy. So if you can live with the foaming, then it's a pretty stiff joint. The weight is not bad. In fact, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to cut this in half, or maybe I'll just cut a chunk off. So let me just slice in there, and that will be a good test for how well you can cut into it after it's dry, and how well you can sand it. So here we go. I mean, this is probably hard to see, but I cut a corner out, and yeah, I mean, you can actually see the porosity on it, because you can see a lot of holes in the glue, but it's hard, strong, and lightweight. So that's the Elmer's Polyurethane, which is about the same as Gorilla Glue. I'm not crazy about it, but that's a choice. Another one that I tried, and this is really just to do the test. Amazing Goop, which you read the instructions on the bag, and it sounds incredible. Well, guess what? I put it on the foam, and it just melted it. And this is what the deal is. I mean, glues tend to be composed of two different things. One is the actual glue particles, but they have to be suspended in some sort of solvent, because otherwise it would just be dry. It would be hard dry. So they have to be kept liquid by something else. So then when you spread it, there's some sort of reaction. And of course with epoxy, it's just the reaction between the two components. So that's a little different. It doesn't need air or anything. But with like CA and pretty much I guess all of these glues, when they're in contact with air or with moisture, the solvent basically goes away. Well, with Amazing Goop, the solvent is, I don't know what it is, but some sort of acid, some sort of alcohol or something. That the advantage of that is that it evaporates pretty quickly. So you want a glue that sets really quickly. Something like this might be a good choice. The problem is that the solvent attacks foam. So foam doesn't work with it. In fact, actually, after it's dried out, it's actually pretty stiff. but it, while it was drying out, it just totally, it just totally messed it up. And so this is no good. This amazing goop has its uses. Don't use it with foam. Might be good with wood and some other stuff. It probably dries reasonably quickly. A disadvantage that this has and some of the other glues have is that you need ventilation because it's got a smell and all of that stuff. So anyway, this is another one that I don't recommend. Okay, here's another Apple glue. It's called Loctite Clear Silicone, Clear Household Silicone Adhesive and Sealant. And here we go. Here's the test right here. This is a glue that I think I had also tried out a couple of years ago when I was doing the Modify. That's when I was doing a lot of my testing, and it seems to be a reasonable choice. A couple of problems with it is that one is it's got a smell. In fact, I think out of all these glues, it's got the worst smell. It's not real strong, but if you get your nose close to it, it's just not pleasant. It's hard for me to describe. And the other thing is that it's a lot of warnings about, again, fumes and vapors and needing ventilation. So, it's not something. It's something that you want to avoid if you can. Like, I'm going to cut into this piece again, just like I did before. So let me see. It's a little chunk, a little square off. It actually. Oh, I can smell it now. I couldn't smell it before, so it may not have dried completely. It seems to be. I mean, it feels rubbery and soft, which is nice. That's what they call it, a sealant, I guess, and silicone. It's not the strongest glue. I mean, it's flexible. It seems it's holding onto the foam fine. I could probably peel it apart. It's not the strongest glue, but it's strong enough. Weight-wise, it's okay. Maybe middle of the road. So, it's something that you can use. It went on fairly wet, so it took a little while to dry. So it's nice and flexible. I guess that's the main advantage that it has. It's probably real easy to carve. Because it's like almost like a silicone rubber, but otherwise, I don't know. I don't think it's the strongest glue, so that's another one that I don't know. I may use it for something, but it's not something I'm going to be depending on. I wanted to do actually a test of hot melt glue, which I have done before, but before when I did it, I used a pretty hefty hot melt glue gun, which put on a lot of material at once. And this time I got a hold of two small, very inexpensive hot melt glue guns, and one of them was high temperature, the other one was low temperature. Now actually you can see that the low temperature got melted, but it actually has nothing to do with this. It's because my goop sample, I started on top of it, and before I knew it, it had melted the foam on this. So this melted foam has nothing to do with the hot melt glue itself. So anyway, so when I did my test before, it was a big heavy gun and it was a high temperature. And it worked reasonably well, but I had to be careful because it was started to melt the foam on me. So I wanted to go back and use the smaller guns. So this is the low temperature one. I'm going to cut into it. And actually cutting into it was a little bit hard. So it's not the easiest one to cut. The other ones were fine. This one doesn't want to cut too well. It's I guess it's not as heavy as some of the other stuff, but it doesn't feel the lightest either. Seems to be holding well. Yeah, definitely dry. It actually doesn't have the best band to the foam. So I was able to stick my X-Acto blade in there, and it kind of separated it without too much effort. So, and it's kind of stiff. you know, which you may like or not. But you know, it's a reasonable choice. You gotta be careful to make sure that it really is sticking well to the foam. So you gotta, after you put it on, pretty quickly put on the other part while it's still hot, because otherwise the bond is not gonna be great. So this is the high temperature hot melt glue. Let me cut into it. It's hard to cut, just like the other one. So there goes the corner, and it looks good. Actually, definitely a better band than the low temperature. I don't see any melting of the foam, but I know when I put this on, the bead that was coming out of the gun was pretty small. So it took me a little while to put it on, which of course, while I'm doing that, it's cooling off and it's losing the ability to hold on to the foam. So the high temperature one definitely has an advantage because you have more working time. It's probably not the lightest. It's kind of a little bit stiff. The silicone stuff was pretty flexible. So it's okay. It's an okay choice. I may end up using it for some stuff. I don't know what, because I don't. I mean, definitely, I guess it goes together quick. It's a little bit messy too. So here's an option. This is something that might work, but I have to think about best use for it. What else? I also tested. This is like a white glue. It's PVA wood glue, and this is very similar to the stuff that kids use, but it's a formulation for more strength, and I just wanted to test it. Again, I've tested it before, and this is one that's kind of has a yellow color. It's high quality wood glue, and I remember when I put it on, it was very wet. So this is something that you may need to do some clamping. It cut pretty easy. You may need to do some clamping, and it's gonna take a while to dry. So I'm not crazy about it. I don't like the yellow color. I'm not crazy about it either. Oh, look at that! I just cut into it, and this has been sitting for at least 24 hours. I just cut into it, and it's wet on the inside. I have my finger on the part that I just cut, and it's wet. So even after 24 hours, it needs a lot of air to dry, and it's very wet. And the thing with foam is that, and this is foam from foam board, so it's XPS, and this is what's called closed cell foam, and it doesn't let the air through. If you look at something like EPP, the stuff that bounces, that stuff I'm pretty sure is open cell foam, and the air, that's also what makes it very light, but the air goes through it a lot more easily. So in the testing that I've done in the past with glue, this is exactly the problem I've run into. It's that it just doesn't let the air in, and depending on the glue, some glues are better, and some others are worse at letting the joint breathe. And so PVA glue didn't do a good job. Definitely don't recommend it, because that sat for at least 24 hours and it's still wet. Okay, let me work my way through. Here's another one, and this is actually a new product, a new version of an old product. I actually have three of these bottles. I only tested one, but here's the Aleene's original Tacky glue. But then I saw this, and it said quick dry Tacky glue. I actually did a test with this a few months ago, and I wasn't that impressed. I didn't think it dried that quickly. I guess it's all relative. But then last week I was out shopping, and I saw Turbo Tacky glue from Aleene, and I said, wow, okay, it's a stronger, faster drying. That sounded good to me. So I said, okay, let me try it out. So I bought a bottle, and I did a test along with everything else. Let me find the sample. Here we go. Say Aleene. And right away I noticed that it is thicker. I mean, it's similar to the white glue. You know, it's thicker than the other ones that I have, but it's still pretty wet. And you know, of course, these glues, most of these glues use water as a solvent, and water just takes a little while to dry. So if you're putting on a glue like this and it's pretty wet, pretty liquid, it's gonna take a little while to dry. You know, there's no magic. And I live in a pretty dry climate. Of course, it's actually raining right now a little bit. But you know, it just takes time. And let me cut into it. Seems like it's a good joint. Let's see if it actually dried all the way through. Which I was surprised with that other glue. Looks like it's dried. Yeah, it looks like it's dried. Okay, let me see. You know, I think it might. I think it's dry. No, actually it's not. Yeah, I could see a little bit of moisture in there, and I squeezed it, and there's a little bit of wet glue that came out. So this is actually very similar to the wood glue, the white glue. It didn't completely dry. That means I can't recommend it. You know, it's been sitting for like 24 hours. Otherwise, I mean, it's very similar to white glue, and you know, I don't care how strong they say it is. If it's gonna take forever to dry on foam, can't recommend it. So that's another reject there. Let me take a little bit of a detour here, because what actually triggered all this glue testing is that if you have a copy of my Modify book, I use a glue stick to do the laminations in between two pieces of foam. You know, the wing of Modify is two good sized pieces of foam, and there's a lot of ways that people use to glue that. In fact, I've seen some people use epoxy, but I don't think that's it. Epoxy is heavy, and they don't like that at all. And I guess some people probably use the regular glue that they use to glue the joints for a lamination like that. But I did a test using a glue stick, and it worked great. I mean, I was afraid that it wasn't going to dry, but it did. So with Modify, and I've got a bunch of glue sticks here, which I've also bought, you know, to try them out and see how they go. I mean, you definitely want a glue stick that has color to it. Here, like this one. You know, this one, it says, you know, goes on purple, dries clear, and that's pretty good. But like this other one here, which is a rustic, it's white. So you know, white on white foam, you cannot see which areas you put the glue on and which areas you haven't put the glue on. So definitely don't use something like this. Now, I mean, actually nowadays most of them seem to have that color feature. The Uhu stick is what I use for my test, which is purple. But you know, like this one here, it's actually blue, and I've used this one before. I'm pretty happy with it. This is the Craft Pan acid-free extra strength glue stick. And you know, if they have an inexpensive version and they have an extra strength version, and you know, price difference is not huge, I'm gonna get the extra strength. You know, it's not like I use that much of it anyway. So anyway, but the question was, because with Modify, when I was doing the laminations, I will work really quickly and put it on one piece of foam, put it on the other, and quickly put them together before the glue dried. But now I'm looking at some bigger laminations. You know, in fact, both of the designs I'm working on have good size lamination, which I know I won't have enough time to put the glue everywhere before it dries and put it together. So I was like, okay, can I, you know, maybe I need to do a test. So that's what I did. I got this one, the Uhu stick, put it on one piece of foam, put it on the other piece of foam, and then I just let it sit. And I waited at least 5 minutes. I came back 5 minutes later. All the color was gone, and I touched it, it was still sticky. And I put them together and it actually worked like a contact cement. I'm gonna cut a piece out of this just like I did with the other ones. But I am really happy with that. And in fact, I didn't know that I could wait. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been rushing so much with Modify. I was always, in a big hurry to do it. So anyway, this is completely dry. I mean, this stuff, glue sticks, I think are amazing for doing laminations. I don't think there's anything that's even close to being as good. It weighs nothing. It goes on really quickly. It's totally safe. There are no health issues, and it's very strong. In fact, with Modify, I've never had, or all the designs that I've done using this technique, I've never had a failure. Never had it, And I'm looking at it now. It's very stiff, totally dry. I mean, it's like a perfect joint. So, anyway, glue stick for laminations is definitely still the best technique. And now I know that I don't have to rush as much as I used to before. Okay, let me try another glue. I bought this from Hobby King, the place that everybody orders from, but nobody likes to admit. And they have a couple of different glues that they sell now. This is called the Haoye Instant Foam Glue. And they rave about it. They say, this is what all the Chinese model airplane manufacturers use. And I said, well, I think it only costs like $1. Let me try it out. Well, the problem is, here we go. Here's my test with this glue. The problem with this glue, and I had tested it before, and I ended up not liking it, is that it's very thin. It's almost like water, that maybe like a light syrup. So it has like no gap filling ability whatsoever, and I just don't like that. But otherwise, and of course, it's so liquid, and I'm pretty sure it's gotta be water based, that it's gonna take a while to dry. Let me cut a corner of my sample here. Oh my God! Look at this. Here's a big surprise. Now you probably cannot see it, but it actually ate away at the foam. So that's a shocker, because it says instant foam glue, and I put it on here. I thought, I can't read Chinese, so I don't know the directions, but I basically just put some on one side and put the two sides together. You can see the glue here on the side, and it's actually still sticky. But if you look in here, it ate the foam. It's actually like a big cavity. So this is the total failure. Yeah, it dried out, but it had zero strength. So this is really bad. This is probably the biggest failure of all the glues I'm testing, just because the Goop, Goop, they don't say that it's good for foam, but this glue, they say, is a foam glue, and it ate the foam almost as bad as the Goop. So I don't know what uses that glue has, but foam it's not one of them. So stay away from that foam glue. Okay. Here's another one. I go out shopping, I see interesting stuff, and I'm like, let me try it out. Let me buy one. It's only going to be a couple of bucks, and do an experiment. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. And this is called Polyurethane Seal All-Purpose Adhesive and Caulk in One. And in some ways you can say similar to the household silicone, because it is also like a sealant, a caulk. But this one is totally different. This is water based. And here we go. Here's the sample. And I know I had tested this before, but honestly I don't remember what I didn't like about it. It's nice and white, so I like that. Let me cut into it. Oh, no good. Still wet. Very wet. In fact, it had not dried at all on the inside. So this is definitely a failure. You know, if after 24 hours it hasn't dried, then it's not good. So failure, reject. That's not good. Okay, well, as you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm trying to work my way towards the ones that I like better. But here's another one. This is called liquid fusion, and it's a clear urethane glue, maximum strength, non-foaming, non-toxic, 100% waterproof, fast drying. Sounds pretty good. In fact, I may have forgotten I already had bought a bottle, because then I went and bought another one. So I put it on. I know that when I put it on, I wasn't. It's a little bit more watery than I like. You know, it's not too bad. You know, it's kind of like a semi-thick syrup. I guess it's not too bad. You know, but I thought there was a chance of it dripping and, you know, just getting out of where I want it to be. So anyway, let me cut the sample. See how well the test went. Well, oh my God, it's still wet. I just squeezed it and a bunch of the glue came out. I don't know if you can see it, but a bunch of the glue came out, so it's still very wet. Again, it's been sitting here at least 24 hours, so I have to say this is a big reject. And I vaguely remember that's what happened before. It just didn't dry. It just took forever to dry. So, no good. Okay, well now I'm getting to the glues that I really like. Okay, when I was working on the Modifly design, I also did a test like this. I bought a bunch of glues, did a test, and this is something that anybody can do. This is just foam board, you know, without the paper, you know, 2 inches by, you know, 3 or 4 inches, but, you know, 2 by 2 is what I think I recommended in the book. And, you know, just put the glue in there, let it sit, and you know, come back. I mean, I like to come back, you know, half an hour or an hour later, just to see how quickly it seems to be drying. Because if an hour later it's still totally wet, that's not so good. But, you know, but also try, look, you know, does it have a smell? You know, does it seem to have fumes? You know, what are the warning indications? You know, is it something that you're not supposed to touch? Because, again, you know, I'm in a hurry. I don't want to have to be worrying about all these safety warnings. You know, if I can use a glue that I can touch, and if I spray with my finger and don't have to worry about fumes, that's great. That's my preference. And if it dries quickly, it's not too expensive, it's not gonna run on me. You know, it's thick enough to just sit. I just describe my perfect glue. So anyway. So when I was working on Modifly, I tested a few different glues, and this is actually my favorite. And this is a brand new in the package from a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I was working on Modifly. And the company is called Liquid Nails, and it's called Perfect Glue 1. And I love this stuff. You know, it's pretty thick. It's pretty thick. It's almost, you know, maybe it reminds me of almost like a gel toothpaste. And I did a test with it, but because I had a tube that was open, and there was just a little bit left, so I used it up and threw it out. And, you know, after 2 years of it being open, you know, of course closed, but, you know, mostly used, it had not dried out at all, which I consider another good quality. And you know, why do I like this glue so much? You know, it dries really quickly, and in fact, after about an hour, and, you know, maybe even half an hour, it's probably going to be dry enough to touch. So anyway, so this is the test on Perfect Glue 1. It looks to be completely dry. You know, touching it, and, you know, I don't feel anything liquid or moist in there. It dries. It's kind of like an amber color, clear amber. So that's the color that it dries. You can see it here a little bit, but it's not very toxic. I mean, if you touch it, it will kind of stick to your finger. Similar to polyurethane, but it's totally different. Because this one doesn't foam at all. I mean, in fact, that's one of the nicer qualities that it has. It's like where you put it, because it's thick. So where you put it, that's exactly where it's gonna stay. And it carves really easily. That's the other thing. It's not a problem with because it's actually, it reminds me of the silicone. After it dries, it's kind of rubbery, but you can cut away chunks of it. You can sand it away. It's not going to be a problem, but it's also a bit flexible. And with foam, you want that, because if it's really stiff, then what that means is that that's probably where the joint, it's going to fail at the joint, because there's not going to be any give to it. So anyway, I think the test went pretty well, but I've used this before and I really liked it. So what happened? The problem was, I was buying it from Walmart, and I guess Hobby Lobby also was carrying it, because I got this one from Hobby Lobby. I think I paid $3.50. That's at least before any discount. And then all of a sudden, halfway through doing the Modify project, it was just gone. I mean, Walmart didn't have it anymore. Hobby Lobby didn't have it anymore. And I'm like, well, I can't do, I can't keep on using it, even though I like this so much. So I said, okay, let me test a bunch of other glues. So I started doing some testing, and this is what I found. And it's from the same company. It's called Liquid Nails Small Projects Repair Adhesive, it says. And it's a much bigger tube. This one is 0.75 ounces. This one is 4 ounces. I think this one might be even actually less expensive than that one. But it's a totally different formulation. This is the test for this one. That one is very amber. This one is almost white, and it's almost like Colgate toothpaste. So it's like a paste. Feels like it's relatively thick. Very safe, health-wise. So you can touch it. Don't have to worry too much about that. Let me cut into it. I think the weight is reasonable, because it's got a water solvent, and anytime a glue, oh my God, look, it's still wet. So guess what? This glue, you got, I mean, of course, I don't use it for laminations in Modify, and all the joints that I did use it on were smaller joints, so I never saw this problem. But it's still wet, even though the Perfect Glue one was totally dry, and I know I did these two at the same time. So you gotta be careful. This is a decent glue, and for what I recommend that you do with it in Modify is fine, but don't use it for a big lamination, because this is not gonna dry. In fact, this reminds me of the white glue and the Alene, as far as still being wet and all of that. Okay, so that's an okay glue, but it's not the driest. But then I came across this glue not too long ago, and it's from Loctite. It's called Crafters Indoor Safe Adhesive, and I like that. Indoor safe means no fumes, and I think it's pretty safe health-wise. You can doesn't have any big warnings about touching it. It says non-toxic. That's good. Solvent-free, which means basically the solvent is water. Low odor, water cleanup. I mean, it's pretty good, pretty healthy. Dries clear. It's got a lot going for it. And so this is for me. This is a brand new glue. I don't know how long it's been on the market, but I haven't used it for anything other than the test. It's a brand new tube. So here's the test. I have to say, when I put it on, I liked it, because it actually reminded me of the Perfect Glue. It was kind of like a thick gel, which means it's not going to run. It's going to just sit there. and I think it's pretty. I think it's clear in color. Let me take a look at it. Yeah, well, it's white, but it says it dries clear. So let me cut into it, because I really wanna see what this looks like. I thought this one had a lot of promise when I tested it. Oh, still wet. Okay, so I think this one is actually pretty similar to this, liquid nails, small projects, because it's kind of like a paste, white paste, but it's gonna take, and I can see that it's white on the inside, but it's kind of clear on the border when it dried. So I can see that it's a good glue, but of course don't use it for the big lamination. You gotta be careful with that. But otherwise, I have to say I liked it. I think these two, I'm pretty happy with. They're relatively safe health-wise. They don't take forever to dry because they're pretty thick to begin with, if they get enough air. And they don't have a color that I don't like. I think either clear or white after they dry, which is nice. So anyway, that's another option, But then guess what? While I was out looking for glues and especially online, I actually found that I thought, well, from what I had seen before, this glue had been discontinued. I mean, from what I could tell, nobody's carried it anymore. But then I was on the Liquid Nails website, and they had this glue, which I think is just Perfect Glue 1. Even though I threw away the package. But the package, I think, says new improved formula. And Home Depot carries it, which was very good news. I mean, I still, Walmart doesn't have it. Hobby Lobby, the craft store, doesn't have it. In fact, I've gone through Michael's and some of these other places. Nobody has it, but Home Depot has it. I haven't looked in Lowe's. They may have it, but I know Home Depot does. So I was really eager to try it out, because this is, I think, pretty much the same stuff as the glue that I really liked before, but I had to stop using. So this is the final test. Hope you stay with me all this time. I'm looking at it now. It looks, it's either, I think it's white. Yeah, it looks white to me. Nice strong joint, stiff. But there's some give, but it feels lightweight. Let me cut into it. Yeah, we have a winner. It's completely dry. It looks clear to me. It's hard to tell because the layer. It reminds me of that silicone, but it's actually a pretty thin layer in there. It wasn't hard to spread. In fact, the bottle comes with this plastic spreader on top, but I didn't even use that. I just spread it like this. Weight doesn't seem to be an issue. Definitely there's no foaming, no nothing. And I know from my experience with this glue is that it dries pretty quickly. In an hour you can probably handle it and work on a related piece. I mean, any glue you really want to give 24 hours to be completely dry. Even epoxy, you really want to give it 24 hours to be safe. But this seems to have held up okay. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's in there. It's pretty solid. I stiffened the foam. It's it's not coming apart that I can tell. Let me try and stick it in here. Yeah, I mean, of course I'm cutting into the foam, so it's very well stuck to the foam. So what are the winners of this entire test that I did? Well, I think the glue sticks for laminations are still excellent. I was really happy with them before. I see no reason to change that. They go on quick, they dry, and they don't weigh much. And they're very safe health-wise. So this, and inexpensive too. So a big thumbs up to those. Most of these glues I don't like. I mean, they didn't do it for me. I think the liquid nails small projects, I think it's still a good choice. And the Loctite Crafters, indoor safe adhesive, I think it's a good choice. I can't tell you off the top of my head how they compare cost-wise. In fact, come to think of it, I don't think I can find the small projects anymore. I just remember that. Because Walmart, I got this at Walmart and they don't have it anymore. So the Loctite Crafters, this one I didn't have too much trouble finding. They're very similar. I think it's a great choice. But I'm probably still gonna have to give the edge to this one, which is Liquid Nails Perfect Glue. Of course, this is definitely more expensive. This costs like maybe $4, which is about the same as this one, or maybe even a little more. But I just like it. I mean, nothing beats it as far as drying quickly, easy to work with. There's no problem with smells. You can touch it. It's gonna stick to your finger. A little bit. It's a little bit gummy. This stuff washes up really easy, so that's no problem. So I guess given availability, I say this is a great choice, but this is an even better choice. Of course you're gonna spend more money for it, so it depends how much you wanna spend. But that's my big glue comparison. I think I've gone through every single glue that I bought. Of course, there's a couple here that are solvent based, so I know they're going to just melt the foam, so I'm not going to test those. Anyway, I hope you stay with me this whole time, and I hope you found this educational. And until next time.